Get a life, Regina. My sister's voice cut through the clinking glasses at her job celebration. The room froze. Laughter trailed behind her words like smoke. Stop clinging to successful people, she added, smiling for the cameras, pretending it was a joke. My parents laughed weakly. No one defended me. I sat there, heartbeat steady, every insult carving itself into memory. I didn't argue, didn't cry. I just smiled because she had no idea the company she bragged about joining was mine. The next morning her welcome email went out. My name was on it, and that's where everything began to unravel. People always said my sister and I were complete opposites. Marina lit up every room she walked into, all laughter, perfume, and perfect timing. I was the quiet one, the one they forgot to introduce when they bragged about our talented daughter. She was a story worth telling. I was background noise. Our family lived off appearances. My parents believed success was something you could post about: promotions, awards, anniversaries. Marina gave them plenty of that. When her photo hit the local news last year, rising star in marketing, they framed it in the living room. My graduation photo, it was still somewhere in a drawer. Growing up, I learned early that attention came with conditions. At 12, I blew out birthday candles alone in the kitchen while everyone clapped for Marina's dance trophy. She's our firework, my dad said proudly. Then he laughed, looking at me. And Regina's our little flashlight, steady and quiet. They meant it kindly, but even kindness can bruise when repeated for years. So I became exactly what they said: quiet, steady, invisible. I studied, coded, worked. I built things that no one ever saw but everyone used. When Marcus and I started our small data firm from a damp garage after college, my parents didn't even ask about it. That's nice, dear, my mom said, already changing the subject to Marina's upcoming fashion showcase. Before I continue the story, tell me first, where did you hear this from? Write it in the comments, because what happens next, most people won't believe. 5 years later, that small firm had grown into one of the fastest rising tech companies in the state. But only Marcus' name appeared in the press, and that was by design. I preferred privacy over praise. I handled the back-end systems, infrastructure, finances. My name lived quietly in documents, not headlines. It was freedom. Then, a month before Marina's job celebration, I learned she'd been laid off. She brushed it off like a stain she could hide under a new coat of paint. It's fine, she said at brunch. I'm applying somewhere better, a data analytics company downtown. They just opened positions for budget analysts. Marcus sent me the resume the next day with a smirk. Recognize this name? I did, and I didn't hesitate. Hire her, I said. He frowned. You sure? Completely. Because sometimes you don't need revenge. You just need the right stage, the right silence, and the truth to do the rest. Marina started her first day with the same energy she'd always had. Heels clicking like applause, voice loud enough to fill every corner of the office. To everyone else, she was the new hire with confidence. To me, she was the storm I had invited in. Marcus sent me a message that morning. She's here, you really want to do this, just let her work, I replied. For the first week I kept my distance, working remotely like always. I reviewed her onboarding reports, her project notes, even the early budget drafts she submitted. She was competent, fast, persuasive. She charmed her way through meetings, dropping buzzwords she barely understood. But people loved her energy. They always had. When I came into the office after hours, the space still smelled faintly of her perfume. A coffee cup with M scribbled in gold marker sat beside the printer. I caught myself smiling. This wasn't about punishment. It was about perspective. I wanted her to see what real work looked like when applause wasn't part of the job description. A week later, I got my first glimpse of her behavior. She'd been gossiping in the break room, telling someone our management's a bit strange. There's this senior advisor who supposedly signs off on every major project. Nobody's ever seen her, probably a fake name. That fake name was mine. Marcus called that night. She's curious about the signatures. Regina thinks she's starting to connect dots. Let her wonder, I said. Curiosity is the first step toward humility. At the next family brunch, Marina couldn't resist bragging. I'm finally somewhere serious, she said, eyes flicking to me. The kind of place where people actually things. My parents beamed. I just nodded, swirling my water. Every sentence out of her mouth was a reminder of the years she'd spent mistaking volume for value. But then she added, the structure's odd though. There's some woman named R. Green on all the financial documents, never seen her. Maybe it's a legal placeholder. My fork paused midair. Marcus, sitting across from me, nearly choked on his drink. I caught his eye and gave the smallest shake of my head. Marina kept talking. Oblivious. Anyway, if she's real, she must be ancient. Nobody that senior hides forever. That was the moment the quiet in me changed. I wasn't angry, I was done. Later that night, as the office emptied and the city lights flickered below my window, I opened the internal system and approved her first performance review myself. Keep her, I typed. Because the real revelation wasn't in firing her, it was in letting her walk straight into the truth she'd spent her life denying. By her second month, Marina had woven herself neatly into the company morning lattes, team selfies, pep talks about grind culture. She thought she'd found her place, and maybe for a moment she had, but arrogance has a way of digging its own trap. Late one Tuesday, I received a notification, an internal query from accounting. Someone had requested access to the executive approval logs. I didn't need to guess who. The username was hers. Marcus called me seconds later. She's snooping. You want me to shut it? Oh no, I said, staring at the glowing screen. Let her look. That night while the building slept, Marina combed through every file she could open. Project budgets, payroll sheets, payment approvals. She must have seen my initials RG again and again. Maybe it felt like déjà vu, like seeing a ghost signature over her paycheck. When I came in the next evening, I could sense the change in the air. Her laughter was forced shorter. She'd begun to ask quiet questions in meetings. Who signs off? Our budgets. Does anyone actually know the senior advisor? She was circling the truth, and it was only a matter of time before she crashed into it. That weekend, Marcus and I prepared for the company's FTH anniversary gala, a night meant to celebrate growth, partnership, and innovation. For me, it was something else entirely. The moment silence would finally speak, I worked late in the empty conference room, finalizing reports when the elevator dinged. Heels clicked against the tile, sharp, measured. I didn't even have to look up. Regina, her voice trembled between disbelief and recognition. I turned slowly. She stood in the doorway, clutching a folder to her chest. You have access to the restricted drives, she said. You sign everything, the budgets, the hires. Her breath hitched. It's you. I met her eyes. You said I should get a life. Remember, I closed the laptop softly. Turns out I built one. Marina's face drained of color. You're the senior advisor. The co-founder, I said simply. She laughed once, small, brittle. This can't be. Real, check the founding files if you need proof. They're under my name. Silence swallowed the room. She looked down at her folder, then at me, realization settling like weight she couldn't carry. I didn't bring you here to embarrass you, Marina, I said quietly. You're good at your job, that's why I hired you, but I wanted you to see what respect really looks like when it isn't handed to you. Her lip trembled, but she said nothing. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. When she left, the door didn't slam. It just closed softly, like something ending without a fight. The night of the anniversary gala arrived, dressed in golden nerves. The ballroom shimmered under chandeliers, every surface polished to reflect success. Waiters glided through the crowd with trays of champagne, and laughter rose like static in the air. For most people, it was a celebration of innovation and growth. For me, it was the night silence would finally speak. Marcus found me backstage. Adjusting my dress, his tie slightly crooked. You sure about this? He asked, voice low. You could keep the mask on forever and still win. I smiled faintly. Winning isn't the point, seeing clearly is. He gave a small nod, handed me a folded card with my speech notes, and whispered, she's out there. I knew even through the curtains I could sense her. Marina was impossible to miss, her laughter, her perfume, her way of filling space until no one else had room to breathe. I could picture her in a silver gown, champagne in hand, basking in the attention that had always come so easily. She was born for rooms like this. I had built them, the lights dimmed, the host's voice echoed through the speakers. Tonight we honor 5 years of extraordinary achievement. Please welcome the 2 people who made this company possible, Marcus Hale and Regina Green. Applause thundered through the ballroom. The spotlight hit me full in the face, hot and blinding. I stepped onto the stage beside Marcus, hearing the applause as if underwater. Every cheer felt like a heartbeat, every camera flashed like lightning. And then I saw her, Marina, frozen near the back, her smile collapsing into disbelief. Marcus spoke first, his practiced ease carrying through the hall. 5 years ago, we had nothing but 2 laptops, a coffee pot that barely worked, and a dream that somehow survived sleep deprivation. Tonight, we celebrate the people who turned that dream into reality. The crowd laughed warmly. He gestured to me, and for the first time, the woman who built everything behind the scenes is stepping into the light. I took the microphone. My hands didn't shake. I've always preferred silence. I began, my voice steady, not because I had nothing to say, but because I wanted my work to speak first. A hush fell over the crowd. When we started this company, people told us to aim smaller. They said what we wanted was too ambitious, too risky, but I've learned something. Sometimes the quietest voices build the loudest legacies. Polite applause rippled through the room. I glanced at Marina again. Her face was pale, her glass still half raised. For years, I continued, I thought success meant being seen, that if no one recognized you, it didn't count. But I've come to understand that visibility isn't proof. Impact is. Marcus smiled beside me, proud, but knowing this moment wasn't about business. It was about family, history, truth. I looked toward the crowd, toward her. So tonight, I'm grateful for the supporters, the doubters, and the people who taught me. That silence doesn't mean weakness, it means control. Applause erupted louder this time. The cameras flashed. I let the sound wash over me, not as validation but as closure. When I stepped off stage, my legs felt light, untethered. I headed toward the balcony for air, weaving through clusters of people congratulating me. Their words blurred together, inspiring, powerful, unexpected. I smiled politely, but my mind was already elsewhere. Outside, the air was crisp. The lake reflected the skyline in broken gold lines. I rested, my hands on the railing, feeling the pulse in my wrists finally slow. Regina, her voice came from behind me, small but sharp like glass cracking. I turned. Marina stood there, framed by the ballroom lights, eyes red-rimmed, mouth trembling. She had lost her effortless composure. "So it's true," she said, almost whispering. "You're the co-founder." I nodded. She let out a hollow laugh. "You let me work under you. You watched me parade around like I knew everything. You were good at your job," I said. Simply, she blinked. "Don't do that, don't pretend this doesn't matter. I humiliated you and you." Her voice broke. "You didn't even defend yourself." "There was nothing to defend," I said. "You weren't attacking me, you were attacking what you thought I was." Her hands clenched around her clutch. "And what was that? Someone beneath you?" She looked away, the sound of the lake soft behind us. "You could have told me," she whispered. "And you would have listened?" I asked. Her silence was the answer. "I didn't want revenge, Marina," I continued, my tone calm. "I just wanted the truth to find you. Sometimes the only way to teach someone respect is to let them trip over it themselves." Tears welled in her eyes. "You must hate me." I shook my head. "No, I just stopped needing you to understand me." She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, her voice shaking. "I was awful to you, yes," I said quietly, "but that's over now." She took a step closer. "How can you be so calm? If someone had done to me what I did to you, I'd want to destroy them." I met her eyes. "That's the difference between us." She stared at me for a long moment, her expression folding between guilt and awe. "You're better than me." "No," I said, "I just learned when to stop proving it." The ballroom doors opened behind us, spilling laughter and light across the floor. The crowd inside chanted Marcus's name for an encore speech. He looked toward us but didn't interrupt. Marina's voice softened. "I don't deserve your kindness." "This isn't kindness," I said. "It's clarity." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us wasn't filled with rivalry anymore, it was something quiet or raw. She broke the silence first. "You won't see me at brunch for a while," she said, half smiling through tears. "But I'll come when I can look you in the eye. I'll be here," I said. When she left, the click of her heels faded like a confession. I stayed out on the balcony. A while longer, the night pressing soft against my skin. The city glowed below, bright and indifferent. I thought about the years I'd spent building a world where I didn't need to be seen, and how tonight stepping into the light wasn't about glory. It was about balance. Later, when I re-entered the ballroom, Marcus found me near the buffet. "So," he said, handing me a glass of water. "How does it feel to be famous?" I laughed softly. "Exhausting." He tilted his head toward the door. Marina had exited. "She'll come around, I know," I said. "She always does, just takes longer to see what's real." He raised his glass to quiet victories. I clinked mine against his, the only kind that lasts. By the time I got home, the adrenaline had faded, replaced by a calm that felt almost holy. I slipped off my heels, set the award plaque on the counter, and opened my laptop. A new email waited in my inbox from Marina. No subject line, no apology, just one sentence. "Thank you for showing me what success actually looks like." I stared at it for a moment, a slow smile spreading across my face. Then I typed back, "It's not about being seen, Marina. It's about doing something worth seeing." When I hit send, the city outside hummed softly, a rhythm I'd come to know by heart. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like armor. It felt like peace. 2 weeks after the gala, everything at the office felt subtly new, lighter somehow, as if the air itself had exhaled. People talked about the event for days, replaying the moment I'd stepped on stage. But what surprised me most was Marina. She still dressed impeccably, still arrived early, but the difference was in her tone. She no longer led with bravado. She listened. She started asking questions instead of giving orders. One afternoon, I passed by a meeting room and heard her mentoring 2 interns, explaining budgeting systems with calm patience. It was strange and beautiful to watch. Later that evening, I found her alone in the break room sorting through notes. She looked up. Hesitant. "I'm still learning," she said quietly. I nodded. "So am I." She smiled, a small, honest curve of her lips. "I didn't think we'd ever talk like this." "Neither did I said, "but some stories end better when no one's trying to win." We stood there for a moment, the hum of the vending machine the only sound between us. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like silence. It felt like peace earned the hard way. A month later, I approved the final payroll of the quarter. Among the signatures and Numbers, one name stood out. Marina Green, project lead for the mentorship initiative she'd built from scratch. I paused, smiling. There was no pride, no revenge left in me, just quiet satisfaction. I leaned back, watching the sunset spill across my desk. Sometimes justice doesn't need applause. Sometimes it simply appears in the details, like a sister's name on a project she finally earned. If you've ever been underestimated, remember silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. If you enjoyed the story, hit like, drop a comment and subscribe for the next chapter.